Had a hard day, 'cause you placed the don't disturb sign on the door. You lost your place in line again. What a pity. Never seemed to wanna dance.
It seems that bullying has always been a social issue. However, bullying and intimidation cases were rarely brought to attention in the United States until the late 1990s. As the social climate and moral sensitivity changed, attention to the impact of bullying, harassment, and intimidation has evolved with it. A case that once would be considered as kids just being kids, today's society, it is a serious matter. Until the 1970s, bullying was considered a normal part of growing up and the school environment. Children complaining about being bullied were often dismissed because it was viewed as a rite of passage or a way to build character. It wasn't until 1973, with the first comprehensive study on bullying and victim dynamics, that bullying was even considered a social issue. Dan Alwis, a Swedish researcher and psychology professor, conducted the first study aimed to determine what variables would make someone more likely to become a bully or a victim. He brought to light the detrimental effects of school-age bullying by extending the existing definition of bullying to incorporate verbal remarks and psychological threats. His book, Aggression in the Schools, What We Know and What We Can Do, was pivotal in the switch to recognizing that bullying was not just an uncomfortable phenomenon in adolescence, but a concerning social issue. Interest and awareness regarding bullying rose, as well as its link with academic achievement, depression, and suicide. In the 1990s, Alwis brought his research to the United States and began work to implement school-based bullying prevention programs. With new societal changes, shifting views of student and child welfare, Alwis's research, a rise in teenage suicides, and the Columbine shootings of the 1999, bullying became a necessary area for legislative influence. As a response to the countless school shootings that occurred in the late 1990s, 15 states enacted a form of anti-bullying laws by 2003. By 2007, the number rose to 45. In September 2011, New Jersey State Governor Chris Christie signed the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. This law's high public attention stems from reports deeming it to be the toughest piece of anti-bullying legislation in the country. The law requires a formal process for reporting and investigating suspected bullying. Every district needs an anti-bullying coordinator, and each school an anti-bullying specialist. Each school is also required to have a school safety team. Since its implementation in September, there has been much backlash, especially from school staff and administration, regarding the strict and cumbersome standards that the law requires.
Some of the negatives, and I'm going to speak candidly and personally, and you're living it with me in the
Right.
job that we're doing now. You know, it became in effect for us essentially September 1st, 2011. We were preparing for it as of last spring, as some of the counselors trying to come up with reporting forms and policies and things like that. But then the school year ended, powers that be created forms, created policies, and we came in our first day of professional development. We report to school, no students, and we get a 2-hour in-service about the law. That was it. That's a negative. We weren't trained on how to use the forms. We weren't trained on I guess really how to handle the situations which we were now being told would be handled differently. So for instance, when I really talk about the negatives, I feel like the government or the law took away the school's ability to have discretion, to have some judgment in situations, to take into account developmental age, developmental appropriateness. It doesn't allow us to take into account a student who is classified, a student who may be ADD, a student who may have a language processing disorder and things like that, yet they all have to be treated the same under this law.
Right.
I just really feel like it took away our discretion, our judgment, and our power to handle situations that we, at least I feel in Wayne, have been handling very well over the many years, and yet now we were told be cautious, err on the side. The other negative was same for the parents. This law came into effect. They weren't trained. They weren't exposed to anything. They just were seeing really what everyone was seeing in the news, and there's so much paperwork and time. You've been with me where we're at one school due to do lessons, meet with students, someone makes a remark, we're pulled instantly to another school to investigate, document, involve administration, involve Board of Ed and that sort of thing. And defining bullying, that's the toughest thing. You know, typically how we defined it, one of the key things, and your group may differ, be interested to see what your class says about this as well. But, you know, one of the keys for bullying is persistent, constant, and an imbalance of power. We're not talking about the two kids going back and forth and saying, like, you suck, you stink, your clothes are ugly, you're this, and you're going back and forth, and it's not restricting either one of you from partaking in school, participating in class, going to other events or activities. Like, bullying is really that persistent attacking, and where a child's afraid to come, a child's confused, they're crying or things like that. They may try to stand up for themselves, and that's not working.
Right.
But it's a continuum.
Right.
You know. All right, so the positives of the HIB New Jersey bill, I would say, is that it really brought bullying more to the forefront of all society. It's a term that people have used for years and years and years, but I don't think have really understood it. So I guess bringing it into its law in September, at least it went into effect for us then, just really showed that the nation cared. I know it's a state law, but it was in result to a lot of issues going on around the country, you know, suicide attempt, bullying, cyberbullying, things like that. So New Jersey took a stance and thought, let's make a strong example, create a strong law that they hoped would encompass everything, protect every student from anything that can happen to them. I guess that's the positive.
hit me at the dark. Finally, I can see you crystal clear.